Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today, How to Score Big with a Strategic Digital Advertising Strategy. My name is Lori Pugh Markham, Director of Events Content and Strategic Engagement at the Path to Purchase Institute, and I'll be your moderator for today. Now, before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping items. We plan to leave time at the end to answer some questions from our audience, so please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask questions over the next hour, and you'll find that on the left side of the screen below the video feed. And if we don't have time to answer all of your questions, we'll do our best to follow up after the session concludes. You can also use that section on the bottom left if you have any technical issues, and our webinar producer will assist you today. If you'd like to review the discussion later or share it with a colleague, a replay will be available within 2 hours of our conclusion today. So you go right back to the page that you registered and you can listen to it again, and it will be available for 90 days. So that's it for housekeeping, and I'd like to just tee up our webinar briefly. A major contributing factor to really over $120.6 billion in beer sales, which is 4.77% growth. And that contributor is sports. So drinking is often a staple of the sports viewer's experience, whether they are a diehard supporter or a casual brand. So today we are going to learn some best practices on sports marketing strategies from industry experts at Molson Coors, Spark Foundry, and Akey Technologies. So our speakers today are Risa Crandall, Senior Vice President of CPG and BevAlc Strategy and Sales at Akey Technologies, the media division of Inmar Intelligence, Stephanie Spezia, Senior Marketing Manager, E-commerce at Molson Coors, and April Carlisle, Executive Vice President, Commerce at Spark Foundry. So I'll turn it over to Risa to get us started.
That sounds terrific. Well, we're so happy to be here today. It's really exciting to be able to share with you and work with our partners, Stephanie and April, to bring to you some case studies, inspiration, where personalization is really going to bring you forward in your marketing initiatives, and look at how we're planning for the future. So we're really excited to be here today and happy that everybody's joining. And I also want to, right up from the top, also mention Michelle Dawsey here on Team Akey Technologies, who's a power partner in all of this. All righty. So we're going to walk you through a really great agenda of things today. And what you're going to really understand is the opportunity in the marketplace. What is this opportunity in this very powerful vertical, the beverage alcohol vertical, and when it comes to why personalization matters. We're going to talk about what personalization looks like, because personalization means different things to different marketers and different folks. And we want to make sure that you understand the different options to consider when personalization is considered in your programming. And then we're going to walk you through from the Molson Coors, the Spark, and Akey point of view, what this approach is, and give you some look at some of our programming together and where we see this programming taking hold as we continue our partnership. And then we're going to have a fun and lively panel discussion where I'm going to share with you some great questions with Stephanie and April and get their leadership approach into this category and what their plans are as we move into the marketing world. All righty, I'm going to turn this over to Stephanie and April, who are going to walk you through the opportunity.
Thanks, Risa, and good morning, all. So I know I'm biased, but I think alcohol is an awesome category. And by the looks of it, consumers are agreeing, because by the end of this year, they're expected to spend close to $300 billion on the category. That is billions with a B. And then if we look at the total alcohol category, I'd be remiss not to give a shout out to beer in particular, coming from Molson Coors. And so with beer, we know that beer within total alcohol has the highest household penetration and the biggest purchase frequency of the other alcohol categories. And not just within alcohol, but beer is really big overall. It tends to be the #1 edibles category in total grocery. And despite some little hiccups during COVID, post-pandemic, we're starting to see growth, which is really amazing news. And so from 2022 to 2023 alone, we've seen about an 8% year-over-year lift in revenue, which is amazing, and a trend we want to continue to see despite some of the pressures we're seeing from adjacent categories like ready-to-drink beverages. And growth is amazing. I will take growth of the category all day long, but unless we understand what some of those drivers are, it's really hard to sustain that growth. So let's take a look at some of the trends we're seeing within the beer category. The first major trend is the opening of on-premise bars. If you could go back one slide again. Thanks. The first major thing we're seeing is with COVID, bars and restaurants took a massive hit. As you can imagine, people were at home having occasions and couldn't do some of their normal routines. But with COVID in the past, bars and restaurants are starting to see a resurgence, which is incredibly important for beer because it's one of our largest channels. Not only is it one of our largest channels in terms of consumption, but it's really important for us strategically because on-premise is where people trial our products. The second component has been increased in-home consumption. So despite the fact that people are returning to bars and restaurants, they also now have become comfortable with creating entertainment at home during the pandemic. And so with that, beer consumption continues to increase in home. And another reason why that's happening is with inflationary pressure, consumers are being more price sensitive. And beer has tended to remain relatively flat in pricing as compared to some other beverage categories that are seeing increases up to 10%. And finally, one of the trends is the demand for convenience. Again, COVID shifted consumer behavior quite drastically. Half of people who have purchased online beer did so for the first time during the pandemic. No one wants to see a pandemic happen, but there were some benefits in terms of it creating more awareness of the ability to buy online and people getting comfortable with the idea of making a click instead of driving to the store. And we see that behavior continuing into the future as many shoppers are shifting from being in-store shoppers only to omni shoppers, which means that they want to have the convenience of shopping when and how they want. And at Molson Coors, it's really important for us to continue to look at what's happening from an occasion perspective, because we have a philosophy called purpose drives purchase. And essentially that means that who you're with and the occasions you're in are going to drive the choices you make in that particular occasion as it comes to what you're going to drink. And so I'll hand it over to April to tell you a little bit more about one of the big occasions we focus on in the beer industry, sports.
As we think about fandom, there's like kind of 4 key sports that are really helping drive this. So the first one is you think about NCAA, and NCAA has been all about the brackets. So, everyone from young people to even my 8-year-old parents have been involved in the brackets. And it's really become a moment where people who even aren't day-to-day fans of basketball get involved. And what people look for is, the upset. So, this year when the St. Peter's Peacocks beat Purdue and upset them, everyone's eyes were glued and watching. If you think about, WNBA, there's now these orange carpet moments that happen within the WNBA draft, and all of that being broadcast by ESPN, which has brought a whole new audience to this. It's not the actual games, but it's actually the drafting of the players. You look at MLB and what's happening this year, and with the new pitch clock that's making the games go faster, all of a sudden it's bringing even more people to the MLB game. And if you look at the NFL draft, you look at all of the watch parties that are happening. And even if you're not in the host city where the NFL draft is happening, there are all these events and moments happening around the NFL draft. And lastly, if you just think about all of that put together, it's really become a significant moment for fandom.
It sure has. It is exciting to see.
And next, can't see the slides though. So the next slide was around the importance of driving these moments. And you know what, Reese, you're going to have to help me because now I can't see the slide.
Absolutely. It's part of the, we're playing our little P2P game here. So you're passing the ball. So here are just some of the stats that are really important about these events that April has talked about as far as sports is 3.7 alcoholic drinks are consumed when consumers are watching sporting events. So it's really important to think about that as those occasions, those moments, those opportunities, as Stephanie said earlier too, at the bar and restaurant, and how that creates momentum for a brand that then pulls through on e-commerce and in-store. And 76% of sports fans really prefer consuming beer on game day over other alcohol options. It's really beer and sports really go hand in hand, and consumers appreciate the Molson Coors brands and the different flavors and the different opportunities that they can bring beer into their sports viewing life. And here brands are reaching sports audiences during those moments with a personalized message. It's really important for brands to think about those different moments, like April was talking about, whether it is the WNBA, whether it is about the orange carpet, whether it is about those different moments that the brands can capitalize on in a respectful way. It's the game, but it's the pregame and all these events leading up to it. And then when you think about during the game and the social media opportunity, and then how you retarget that consumer for the next experience. So it's really thinking about that personalized message. And April, anything else you would add on that?
No, I think you got it, Risa. Thank you.
Of course, of course. So then we go to why personalization matters. And so really personalization here at a key, and with our partnership with Spark and Molson Coors has really been in a fabulous way. Personalization matters because it gives the consumer a deeper connection to your brand, to the opportunity, to different audiences, to these different occasions, and of course, sports as well. So it's really understanding and unlocking what that personalization means. And we said at the top of our webinar too, that personalization is a large phrase, right? And we want to be able to break it down a little bit more. Consumers expect personalization. So that's an important fact to get right out there. 71% of consumers expect it. So when we have conversations with our brands, and Molson and Spark have definitely embraced this, understanding that consumers are looking for that right balance of personalization to the brand and to the content. And then consumers really do get even frustrated when they don't see personalization. We all can talk about our, marketing to one, but I have a big dog. And if I saw an ad for a cat product, it's not going to connect with me. If I saw even an ad for a small dog product, that's also not going to connect to me because I have a very large dog who's actually sleeping right now, which is fantastic because otherwise you'd be hearing her. So it's really understanding how personalization works, especially in this category where, the beer category and the bev-al category has more complexities. I like to call it a positive puzzle that we got to figure out. And so we do that with personalization, and it does make that impact. So consumers would like to see that opportunity and will purchase more when the personalization is there. So understanding the flavors, understanding their fandom, understanding how they shop, like Stephanie talked so perfectly about that e-commerce shopping. Who is that consumer that is putting multiple items into their e-commerce cart when it's a Molson Coors brand, and what are they snacking with that? And that we have heard from our marketers time and time again, and the studies support that 97% of a higher revenue for our manufacturers, for our beer brands, for Molson Coors, when personalization is part of the digital marketing strategy and the social marketing strategy. So what does personalization look like? It's really about what the consumer sees. All the science that goes into the personalization is understanding the targeting, the audience, the fandom, the flavor, the basket. But then what does the consumer see is the art of it all. So here are two different categories. You're going to see some visuals in a moment, but the first is we personalize to the product and the music. So understanding which product you are going to prefer in a portfolio of brands, to personalize to that, personalizing to different sizes, different flavors. But we also personalize to the music for those different opportunities. If it's more of an energetic content, whether it's more personalizing to different occasions and holidays. Location and team, critically important. We've talked about sports. So personalizing to your team based on your fandom, based on your persistent location, based on where you enjoy your beverage, whether you're having your beer at the bar and restaurant, at home, at the tailgate, at the home gate, all the different opportunities that we can personalize to. And now you're going to see some visuals of how this all comes to life. And so Valletta's going to show you this.
season, kick off with Crown Royal. When you're on the couch cheering on your favorite team, sip on the unmistakable smoothness of Crown Royal Deluxe. It's the perfect whiskey for any cocktail, so you and your friends can tackle game day right. Click here for the recipe and make game day.
And you can see how that content was even talking about meet us at the bar and restaurant. So perfectly, as we talked about there, is the ability for us to be able to personalize to those different features. All right. Next up, we're going to show you some personalization when it comes to language, right? We want to be respectful to the consumers and personalize to English language, Spanish, Spanglish. When we're talking Canada, we're talking French. So different cultures are represented. We're going to personalize also to the time of day. And so you're going to see this example, how we're personalizing to recharging for the afternoon differently than charge up for that late night watching that team that are going into overtime, and how you can enjoy your Molson Coors products and have that Blue Moon beer while enjoying the game. So we're going to show you how this comes to life. Fantastic. So you can see how that all comes to life. And we even in that example, personalize to how you shop, right? Everything is omni. The consumer is not a one-way street when it comes to how they shop. So having that add to cart and having a personalization for the consumer who's out and about, who can stop in and pick up their beer products when they go into their convenience store, for example. Here we're going to show you personalization. Look at this by device type. So here you can just see right on this slide, the mobile device, the connected TV with that shoppable QR code. I like to call that couch commerce because you're on the couch. You can scan that QR code and buy your Blue Moon right there. Here we also included digital out of home. Digital out of home is personalized and also actionable with that QR code. You can scan that QR code while you're out running your errands and have your product delivered to your home as you're getting ready for kickoff. Personalizing to the weather outside. You know, we all understand hot drives more beers purchases, right? So how do we personalize to that? But have you ever thought about not only hot, but what I like to call really hot, right? There's certain markets of the country where 90 degrees is actually comfortable. Not for me. I don't know about you. Not for me. Anything over 85 is hot, Teresa. But in the South, for example, or in Texas, where I was last week, hot kicks in at really hot. That would be more at your 97 degrees. So personalizing to the different ways that weather is going to trigger more purchases for Molson Coors is a powerful tool. And we're going to show you how that comes to life.
Every time the day starts feeling like it's fleeting, grab something refreshing to stop it from retreating. Jim Beam Kentucky Coolers. Crisp, cool, full of flavor.
Righty. So now you've gotten to see that. We are going to now show you a little bit more personalization when it comes to occasions. This is going to show you the different ways that we're having the home gate, different than your Sunday fun day versus your bachelorette party. So personalizing to those different occasions, understanding that consumer, and then also to the different holidays, whether a campaign is spanning a quarter and we're personalizing to Memorial Day, but then knowing 4th of July is right around the corner. I guess we're coming up to Labor Day next. So that'll be the personalization that would be coming forward. We're going to show you how this comes to life.
Toast to warmer days with the best of tequila, Astral and Don Julio. Made with 100% agave for a smooth finish. They're perfect to sip straight or to create delicious cocktails. Bring home the party with one easy tap. Astral and Don Julio. Drink responsibly. Toast to America with the best of tequila, Astral and Don Julio. Made with 100% agave for a smooth finish. They're perfect to sip straight or to create delicious cocktails. Bring home the party with one easy tap. Astral and Don Julio. Drink responsibly.
All righty. So you've seen some great examples, and we have One more to show you in display. This one's actually not going to play, but I'm going to tell you what's happening here. We're personalizing with different retailers, right? We talked about there's no one way that the consumer shops. You might be Instacart today, GoPuff tomorrow. You might decide that you're going to be Amazon or having your Whole Foods delivery the next day. So you can see the personalization here by different retailers. We understand in this category too, we have to be mindful to the number of retailers to make sure that it's properly reflected. In our fantastic work with Blue Moon, we also personalize to the on-prem and the different bars and restaurants that you would participate in. You'll see a little bit more of that coming up. And then dynamic game countdown and countdown to scores. So getting ready for the game is that great opportunity for a Blue Moon or a Miller to be able to encourage that purchase to enjoy when you're at bar, restaurant, at your friends, at the home gate, at the tailgate. So that countdown feature drives that urgency. In-game is that opportunity to have live sports scores running right through the communication, keeping that opportunity to have your product delivered to you by the next quarter, keeping that engagement with the consumer about the brand and the sport. So really powerful tools to personalize to. And I hope this has really inspired you to think about different personalization when it comes to video and display. Socially important as well. Social is the power personalizer, right? When it comes to creator content, that's all personalized based on the creators that are selected, all fueled by that first party purchase-based data. But here you can see some great examples of personalizing to the audience, to the shoppability, not only the creator themselves, but their following, right? That's critically important to personalize to as well. So I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie and April. We're going to talk a little bit more about the approach that we've taken as partners.
So thanks, Risa. So as we partner with Molson Coors, we're always looking at all of the opportunities of ways that we can really drive as much media as shoppable as possible. And also, how can we think about, what are those right moments and those right personalized moments. So when you think about Blue Moon, really one of the, premier brands within the Molson Coors portfolio. And we really wanted to support Blue Moon in a different way. And so we were really thinking about how could we ingest this Blue Moon messaging within these moments that are so important. And so we use a key technology to really think about what those right moments are. And we have a KPI really drawing foot traffic to those on-premise locations where people are looking to enjoy those sports moments. So what's wonderful about the technology is that we can also look at multiple retailers and locations, QSR locations, and restaurants and on-premise locations where Blue Moon is served. Because one of the things that people don't always know, consumers don't know, is where can they find Blue Moon? And again, Blue Moon really is such a special product that consumers really want to know where they can find it. So based on the location, then you can drive to the right on-premise location. The program exceeded all of our KPIs, and it really was a benchmark for us to want to do further programs with those personalized moments.
That's fantastic. And I want to give a call out to Emma Hughes over at Molson Coors too, that we work with so closely on this program. Emma really also set us up right by letting us know what past programs in this vein have been like and where we could bring personalization forward. So I want to make sure she feels the love today as well with Stephanie. We appreciate the partnership. And again, the great work that Michelle's doing here too.
Awesome, thanks. So we spoke a lot about sports and the importance of sports in Molson Coors moments earlier. And what bigger sporting occasion in the US than Super Bowl? And so I want to do a little bit of setup of how Molson Coors approached Super Bowl this year, how we thought about that as an occasion, how that came to life in terms of how we engage with consumers in the messaging, and then of course, how personalization played a role. So important context to have is, for the past 30 years, one of our key competitors had exclusivity rights to commercials during the Super Bowl for the category. So we've been unable to participate in that way for, decades. And so when the exclusivity, say that 3 times fast, ran out this year, Molson Coors was first to raise our hands to say we absolutely want to participate in this major moment where there are millions of viewers. But in order to do that, we knew we couldn't just come out with a generic ad. We wanted to make Super Bowl history. We needed to ensure we are building our brands along the way. And also, most importantly, it needs to sell a lot of beer. And as you all know, Super Bowl is expensive. And I think this year, the average 30-second spot cost upwards of $6 million. So another part of our approach was we needed to make sure we weren't treating it as a single point in time as a commercial, but that we were really treating Super Bowl as a season and engaging with shoppers along the entire path to purchase all the way up until the big game. And in order to do that, the first step was making sure that we had a really breakthrough idea in a time that is exceptionally cluttered with advertising messages. And that idea took shape, and we're really excited and proud of this idea. In partnership with DraftKings, we decided to create the first biddable ad. So we leaned into consumer insights of behavior that was already taking place during this time. People doing squares, people betting on games, they're betting on the spread, they're betting on what color the Gatorade's going to be at the end of the game that gets dumped on the coaches. And it's a really fun concept that really gets people motivated. And so we turned it on our head and we decided to apply that to a commercial. So essentially what we did was consumers could bet on what was going to happen in our ad. And so we pitted Coors Light and Miller Lite against each other and essentially asked fans to tell us which of the beers they thought were going to take the reign during the big game and for a chance to win $500,000. And it turns out consumers really resonated with it. We garnered a ton of impressions and really high engagement on our DraftKings platform, showcasing that transferring what was normal consumer behavior to a new application was a successful strategy. And the second component of our Super Bowl strategy was making sure that our brands had a strong role at every point in the consumer journey. And how that came to life was in 3 phases. So the first phase was really teasing that we were having an ad for the first time, but as we talked about earlier, we needed to resonate with consumers. And so making sure the messaging across Miller Lite and Coors Light were distinct to their different positioning, making sure we were reaching people in the correct channels in the right moments to really get people excited. The second part was then announcing what the beer idea was. So here comes the biddable ad, and we used the championship games to do that to really maximize our reach of the message. And then simultaneously, we took that messaging and pulled it down to retail to ensure we are driving incremental displays of our products during that time period and really having consumers see the consistency from what's happening out of store to what's happening in store. And then the third component was the big reveal of the ad. And despite just revealing the ad, which was a fun moment for us, we had a whole team on staff to make sure that when consumers were chattering on social during the game, we were there to keep the conversation going and to engage, to really deepen that brand loyalty and engagement. And then most importantly, we needed to come up with a fully integrated program. And for me, sitting in e-commerce, we can't just excite consumers, which we need to do, but we first need to excite our distributors and our retailers with the big idea in demonstrating how we're going to tie everything together and how we're invested in driving the messaging and awareness of the programs. So the key point is not just let's create a cool ad, but the key point is how is this cool ad going to actually result in selling more beer? So you'll see that we took the messages to on-premise, to off-premise, to our B2B and B2C e-commerce channels. But a really core pillar to this entire campaign was the shoppable media component. So we like to talk about never having dead ends for a consumer. Knowing that we talked about the shifting behavior of omni-channel shoppers, we need to give them the ability to buy regardless of where they are. And that includes when they're online and not just in stores. So that's where we decided to bring in our partner, Aki, to help us solve some of our problems for Super Bowl. And so one of the key tactics we leveraged was for some of our key in-store accounts, how are we demonstrating to those accounts that we're actually invested in driving to those retailers, but also how are we getting the word out to all of the different target audiences? So I will hand it over to Risa to talk a little bit more about how that came to life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Really exciting. I mean, you can see the all the thinking that went into this program for Miller and for Coors to really create an occasion during the Super Bowl, during the big game. But I love the fact that, as you said, Stephanie, too, it wasn't just a game. It was a whole initiative. It is a season. It is an important part to think about. So what we're going to show you next is really how it all came to life with a really fantastic case study compilation video that's going to show you the program, how we used our moments and used personalization. And again, I want to really make sure everybody knows Michelle Dawsey and the amazing team here at Key Technologies put this together really in fantastic partnership with both Molson Coors and Spark Foundry. And Valletta's going to show this for you.
Molson Coors Beverage Company partnered with Key Technologies, the media division of Inmar Intelligence, to drive sales of its products at various retailers during the Super Bowl season. Molson Coors brews beverages that unite people to celebrate all of life's moments. Many of life's moments of celebration surround sports. Whether it was a diehard fan or a casual viewer, Molson Coors aimed to reach people during their most receptive moments with high-impact creative. How? First, Key identified the target audience based on a combination of data signals. Moments AI then fused these signals with pattern recognition and machine learning to determine when the audience would be most receptive to the brand's stock up for the big game message. The results? The campaign drove over 682,000 visits to the retail locations and over $656,000 in incremental sales. With a return on ad spend of $3.64, Molson Coors scored big leading up to the big game.
So you can see the components in the personalization and how we brought that to life, how we then coordinated with the overall larger program that Molson Coors is working on. And so it's really a fantastic collaborative process when we're brought in to work on these programs together with our creative team, with everybody here from our technology side. And again, Michelle and the amazing folks at Spark Foundry, Rich and team, to really put this program together and give it the legs that it could to be able to score that touchdown for Molson Coors. So really fantastic program. And we're really proud of it. And again, are very appreciative of the partnership. So some key takeaways we want to make sure that you focus on with our wonderful share today is we're really moving beyond that recovery and into growth mode, right? In the beverage alcohol category, which has gotten a lot of wonderful talk during the pre, post, and now post-pandemic, I guess I'd like to say. I've just determined that's a new thing, post. We're moving beyond recovery. We're really talking about growth and how we have sustained growth for our brands, right? And that's where personalization really comes in, is that understanding what brings the consumer in to a brand or has them buy that additional six-pack, but how do we then build on that, driving that incrementality? The takeaway of the fact that the sports audience is very highly valuable, right? They are really engaged sports, but also the way that DraftKings was brought into the Molson Coors program for Super Bowl II, just as such a creative way to think about sports in a bigger perspective than the Super Bowl, which is already big. And then personalization drives that impact. It really delivered on the performance, delivered on that opportunity to connect with consumers, which is how this program really took that piece forward, delivered on the performance, brought that personalization, and it really has made our partnership very, very powerful for opportunities to build and grow, like you even saw with social that we shared earlier, and some other tactics going forward. So those are the key takeaways we want to make sure that you jot down in your notes. But we're going to go into some Q&A now and have some questions that are coming from you, but also some questions that we planned for today. So what we're going to do here is, again, thanks Stephanie and April, and have a nice little panel to talk more about this category and the plans for forward. I'm going to do a little icebreaker or something. Maybe with beer you don't have ice, but maybe like a chilled glass. I want to make sure everything's relevant and personalized for today. So I thought I'd open it up to Stephanie and April to tell us a little bit about yourselves and your current roles, and then to do a little bev out, little twist. What's your favorite drink to have when you saddle up to the bar?
Awesome. I can jump in. So I oversee our B2C marketing function for our e-commerce group. And essentially, we are accountable for driving growth through online channels. And we like to call it slinging suds on the internet, right? So we are taking the the same strategies essentially you would apply in store and pulling them online. So making sure product is available, making sure our digital shelves are best in class, and then doing all the marketing and media programming around that to make sure that we are driving awareness and preference across our key platforms like Instacart and GoPuff. And so it's a really exciting space, a really exciting time to be in the e-commerce world, especially since alcohol has been a little bit behind in terms of our ability to participate in this channel with some of the fun legalities we work around.
And then share that drink with us too, Steffi.
Oh, yeah. Okay. This one's hard because they talked about purpose drives purchase. So my preferred Molson Coors drink changes based on where I am, but I think my standard go-to has to be Coors Banquet. I was the brand manager for a little while, and it has a really rich history, and the stubby bottle is so unique. So holding it in your hand when you're at a bar is awesome because then people inevitably will come up and ask what you're drinking. So
love that.
My favorite child of the moment.
It's hard to choose, I'm sure. April, tell us a little bit about you and your beverage.
Yes. So I lead the commerce practice at Spark Foundry, and what that means is that we are helping clients like Molson Coors and others as they think about making all media shoppable. So whether that's on-site with retail partners, and of course there are restrictions currently, of course, with some of the key big box retailers that you would think about. So of course we've gotten very creative in the commerce platforms, the delivery platforms, and all the ways that we can connect consumers with getting their favorite alcohol beverage delivered and in the cart. So much so that we've actually recently created a prioritization planning tool just for Bev Alc, just looking at where and when you can buy and by tactic, depending on each of the retailers. And of course, partners like a Key fit into that planning tool as being a terrific partner in enabling that shoppability. I've been a Miller Lite girl since college, since, of course, when I was 21, right? And it's still a favorite of mine today. But I'm also a little partial to Topo Chico lately. So the Topo Chico Margarita was my favorite for Cinco de Mayo.
Love it. Love it. And it's true. You're allowed to have multiple brands. I love it. All right. So we have the glass chilled, and we're going to open up to a couple panel questions here. The first is, what are the biggest challenges that your company and the agency face when attracting new consumers? And then also keeping up with that, right? We want to bring them in, get that trial, but we want them to stay with the brand.
Yeah, I can jump in again. It's not easy. It's really challenging to do. In all honesty, we'd like to say that we've got it all figured out and we have a silver bullet, but that's not the case. I think the first piece of engaging consumers and keeping them with the brand is knowing what your brand stands for and having a really strong position, understanding what those passion points are that overlap with your brand and your particular audience, and then executing that with really tight consistency and making sure that you are resonating with those audiences and keeping up the dialogue and making sure you're staying on the pulse of what's happening. But yeah, it's a tough thing to keep people within the brand when there's so much choice.
Yeah, and I would say from an agency perspective, we are constantly looking at helping our clients with, lifetime value of the shoppers and consumers for their brand. And so, just because every piece of media can be shoppable doesn't always mean that it should be shoppable, right? So there's a role of, kind of media for brand versus demand. But what we're certainly finding is pushing those limits of making as many pieces of media shoppable really helps keep your brand top of mind when shoppers are ready to convert and ready to add to cart. And so we're helping our clients in every which way but loose to enable that.
That's right. Thinking through the different channels, right, and the different ways to drive that shoppability is important when it's branded demand. So appreciate that. That's one of my favorite phrases because it rhymes as well. So I'm a big believer in the rhyme. That's how people remember things. When it comes to personalization, how do you feel, both Stephanie and April, that this plays a role? Obviously, we talked a little bit about how it has so far, but what are you thinking as we come forward into the fall and going into some of the big seasons for even 2024?
Yeah, for Molson Coors, personalization definitely plays a big role, and especially plays a role in channels like programmatic and social, where we have a little bit more of those targeting capabilities and signals to optimize off of. And for beer in particular, where it's a really local category. So what people are excited about in Texas often looks very different than what people are drinking and excited about in New York, for example. And so because of the local nature of beer, we need to make sure that we are personalizing a lot when it comes to geography. And that has a huge play if we tie back to sports. For example, Miller Lite plays with several alliance partners in the NFL. So if I'm sitting in Chicago, I'm more apt to see a Bears message versus someone sitting in Texas who is going to see a Cowboys message. So it's really important for us, because in order to connect on those passion points, we have to be able to understand who the right audience is and make sure that we are getting the scale to them to make sure that we have both the reach, but also the message that's going to both be most relevant.
And I would say from an agency perspective, coming into, the holidays, we have a lot of food and beverage clients at Spark Foundry. And, a lot of our clients really, they make or break the year, with the holiday season. And so, of course, not only are they competing just for, share of mind and share of voice, just within the food and beverage category, but just in the broader, holiday category, because everyone's competing with TVs and electronics and, all the other, things that are top of mind for the holidays. And so, the more we can be personalized in that message, the better it's going to break through, all of the holiday noise. And so I think there's, it's never a better time than to really be able to do personalization at scale. And I think for a lot of our clients, if they haven't done a lot of work in the personalization space, that they're concerned that, your targets will get too small and you won't be able to get the reach and frequency that you desire to drive that demand. And I think what we've shown today is that you can do both, right? So personalization at scale is available, is possible, and is really the future for many of our brands.
Exactly. It is true. Yes. I'll turn this one to April as far as how do you balance those traditional marketing channels, when thinking about these programs, when it comes to digital and sports, like how do you think through what is the order of thinking through these different channels for specifically sports marketing programs in this category?
Well, I mean, everything we do always starts with the audiences, right? Who are the right people that we are trying to reach? And so I think as we've identified in today's presentation, we're starting with those, audiences. But, when you take a little bit deeper dive, right? So we talked about people that are watching sports, but then there's people who are also, around sports, right? So I'll give you a great example. Here in Atlanta last night at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium was the first ever Premier League summer series game. So I watched Chelsea versus Newcastle. Now, to be clear, I'm not actually a huge soccer fan. Now, I became one from watching Ted Lasso, which I think you've heard me talk about my love for Ted Lasso, right? So I wasn't necessarily following soccer, but there was this amazing, event, and I got an opportunity to attend. And so it was an experience, right? So sometimes you have to really understand your audience, right? Is it people who are, specifically soccer fans, or people that enjoy experiences that also include, sporting. And so, we really think about starting with those audiences and then finding the ways to reach them based on all the data and being able to connect the dots between all of the media channels that are now getting connected between retailers, between, delivery partners, and then getting that, true north of where you want to best drive conversion.
Love it. Anything else, Stephanie, or have we covered that one? Anything you want to add?
I think that was a good articulation. The only thing I would add is sometimes we have to think about surround sound, right? So like TV, we talked about, can be a really expensive medium. So where are the other things like podcasts where the audience is still really engaged, but you might be able to get a little more bang for your buck? So like podcasts or Like we have a relationship with Pardon Our Take or a relationship with DraftKings. So kind of those adjacent categories or mediums that allow you to play in different spaces.
That's right. That's great. Some of the things that, we talked about, one of our team members here at Key, Christina, was at the Discus event. There was a lot of conversation coming out of there too about the new trends or the trends that continue to build, like RTDs and low and no alcohol products have been, definitely trending forward. Have you noticed that, consumers' preferences shifting? How do you respond to that, Stephanie? When you're at Molson Coors with the products within the portfolio and how they connect together or don't?
Yeah, great question. We absolutely see those changes happening, which was part of the impetus for some of the changes we made a few years back at a macro level at Molson Coors. So we used to be Molson Coors Brewing Company, and we intentionally changed to Molson Coors Beverage Company because we were seeing some of these consumer shifts take place. And so we have a long history of being a proud brewer, and we're not walking away from our core brands. Absolutely still beer lovers and are going to support that. And it makes up a large part of our business. But in order to have sustainable long-term growth, we need to expand our portfolio beyond beer. And so even though that kind of remit just happened a few years ago, we've seen awesome progress, and that's coming to life in products like ZOA, which is an energy drink we released in partnership with The Rock. So if you haven't tried ZOA, it's awesome. Another example would be Five Trails Whiskey, which has already won several awards, and it's our first kind of forum for whiskey. And then another example would be Roxy, which is our new zero proof cocktail. Check out mango. It's my favorite flavor. But we're changing with the trends, and that's reflected in our portfolio. And then it's also reflected in how do we think about personalization and what matters to a whiskey drinker versus someone who's on a low or no alc journey. So we're absolutely on top of the trends. We do see them continuing to change. And as they change in the future, we'll be right there to shift to make sure we're meeting those occasions with the consumers.
Perfect. Got to try out the mango. Love a mango. April, any other thoughts on that?
No, well, yes, actually, what I would say is that, we also are helping our clients, always thinking through the beverage plus food pairings, right? And so, that continues to drive opportunities of, making sure the role of both low or no alcohol fits in with, some of the traditional favorites, and lots of opportunities to, try a portfolio of products. I mean, as Stephanie mentioned, Molson Coors has such a large portfolio of products. So how can you get one more item in the basket, and they might be willing to, try both traditional products as well as low, no alcohol. So portfolio strategy is always an important way that we can help our clients.
Love it. Love it. So as the final question that I have for our amazing panel today, I would just love to know, for those dialed into this webinar today, and thank you all for joining, what advice would you give folks that have listened to this content? What would you inspire them to think about?
That's a good question. I think as marketers, one of the traits I think that will make you successful regardless of what you do is be curious. Lean into the trends you're seeing, lean into checking out what the competition is doing, lean into your media partners to understand what they're seeing, because ultimately the more you kind of take these pieces of inspiration from divergent places, the more you'll strengthen the plans you have for your brand specifically. So that would be my advice.
And my advice, and the advice I give to my clients on the daily, is think about a mindset that's not only test and learn, but test and go. So I think, every, brand marketer that's worth their salt has always thought about, like, what's my base plan, but what are my, plans to test and learn, which is usually, 10 to 15% of the budget sometimes if you're lucky. But sometimes that comes with like some heaviness of, we need to, look at what the hypothesis is going to be. We need to, spend 6 months testing different options, look at the results, and then decide. And in today's world, you have to test and go and not be afraid to fail. And so, take pieces and parts of budgets and just give it a go, because every one of the platforms, the delivery platforms, the retailer platforms, every month they are adding new capabilities. And so having that mindset of test and go and fail fast although it's, trite to say it, but it's never been more true in the world of shoppable media.
I couldn't agree more. I think that being curious is so, important, Stephanie, too, to try new things, see what's out there in the competition, see how you can lean into your partners. We're so appreciative of how Molson Coors and Spark has leaned into a key, but, looking at your competition and where they are, for example, with the big Super Bowl event that it is, and being so clever and smart and innovative in this program and going forward. And couldn't agree more also with the test and go. It's really about trying, experimenting, being open-minded, being innovative, because if you're not, you are going to be behind. So I really applaud both Molson Coors and Spark for being those partners to do just that. I really want to thank Stephanie and April for being my co-partners today. It's been a fantastic discussion, just really powerful content, and you both did a great job really sharing it and communicating your visions for what we've done together and where things are going in the future. I don't think we have time for questions. It sounds like we really gave you the great content. We gave you the bonus pack, and we're really proud of all the great content that we could share with you today. And again, want to really thank the Path to Purchase, thank Molson Coors, thank Spark Foundries, thank everybody at Key Technologies and Inmar Intelligence. It takes a wonderful beer village and a beverage and larger village, and that's what makes the collaboration work, and that's what makes the performance happen.
Wonderful. Again, thank you to our speakers today, Risa, Stephanie, and April, for your time and industry knowledge. And for those of you who have questions that you submitted, we'll make sure that someone follows up with you post-webinar and answers those. So if you're looking for more engaging content, register for the Path to Purchase Live and Expo, November 7th through the 9th in St. Louis. It's going to be 2 exciting days filled with leading marketers from CPG brands and retailers who will share their insights and strategies for evolving, adapting, and succeeding in the next generation of omnicommerce. I'd like to thank all of our audience today for devoting some of your valuable time to be with us, and we hope you found it worthwhile. Please make sure to take the satisfaction survey and let me know what topics you would like to see in the future. And remember, this webinar will be available on demand later today so that you can watch it again or share it with some of your colleagues. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you back here very soon.